Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a general good day. It's me again, Fahima Semanda of the ASRI FLP program of 2025. Welcome back to the residents that have been following our discussions, and welcome anew to our first-time viewers. Let's do a quick recap. Okay, so we've discussed municipality and its structures of Section 79 committees, and we've touched on Section 80. We've also discussed the roles of residents in decision-making and pushing forward change, all in reference to waste management in the city of Johannesburg. Carrying on with our theme, we have our beautiful guest, Zanele Masuk. Zanele is a High Court attorney in South Africa with over 7 years of experience. She is also an internationally accredited mediator and workplace investigator. Currently, she serves as a legal manager in a private dispute resolution agency, overseeing statutory referrals, mediations, and arbitrations. Additionally, she acts as an independent panelist, providing chairing, investigation, facilitation, and counseling services in alternative dispute resolution. So we truly have a superstar with us today. Welcome, Zanele.
Thanks, Fahima, and thank you for having me here.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's not easy hearing people read your profile. It's very uncomfortable, but thank you for inviting me.
You're very much welcome. So should we dive into it?
Sure, let's go for it.
So could you please give us a brief background about the Johannesburg and Oversight and Accountability Project, as well as your involvement in it?
Sure. So the Oversight and Accountability Project for the Johannesburg or Cleaner Johannesburg initiative actually came about following the Oversight and Accountability training that ASRI held. And it was a group of individuals who were interested in using that training and taking it forward and seeing how you could make it more active. What we found is that there was a lot of different interests around where our focus was. But at the heart of those interests, what we settled on is waste, because of the fact that we saw that waste is one of the most unique and special spaces that brings all those interests together. So I'm the legal track lead for that Cleaner Joburg initiative. And so my role is just to assist and to guide in terms of legislation and what are the parameters of community engagement that we can participate in, and also to guide in terms of some conflict wise systems that we can also apply in using oversight and accountability mechanisms.
Oh, nice. So to be clear, it was a group of concerned residents that came together and have established this great initiative.
Yeah. And not just concerned residents. I think it's quite important to say young people, because there's often this perception that young people are apathetic. And that's what was quite fascinating about it, is it was an intergenerational mix of young people, which allowed us to come together and spread different ideas from different backgrounds, and focus together and look at this initiative.
So you heard it, residents. A group of like-minded people with the same goal can make a great change.
Absolutely.
So, why waste? Why is it that that's the area of focus in comparison to like something like education, health, the general focuses? Yes.
You would be surprised, but waste is one of those areas that we found to have the biggest intersectionalities across the different portfolios that actually exist in the oversight committees. And what do I mean by that? I mean, quite literally, it touches on safety concerns, it touches on community development, it touches on youth engagement and the ability of disabled youth to access transport, to access services. And it's a visual representation of the decay of our municipalities, right? And so it was one of the spaces that we saw would be the best place to pilot this project and then see if it works, how do we then take that forward into the other areas that exist. Through the different proposals that we have put forward, which we will discuss as we go on.
Okay, nice. So how are you, as the Johannesburg Oversight and Accountability team, going about ensuring that oversight as well as accountability are occurring in collaboration with the EISD Oversight Committee? And could you just give us a very brief background or very brief explanation, let me say, to what the EISD actually is.
Okay. So EISD quite literally stands for Environment, Infrastructure and not social, Services Department. That could be wrong, but just check that. In essence, it covers the services such as your Joburg Water, your City Power, and your Pick It Up Waste services. So it looks at your environmental and infrastructure services. What is its role? It's supposed to ensure that budgets that have been passed in these areas are being spent effectively, that any initiatives or developmental plans that have been tabled are being carried out. And so quite literally, their role is to hold these structures that have been delegated the authority to provide these services accountable, to make sure that they are actually doing what they're mandated to do, so that there are trucks on the streets picking up trash, that there's power that's being supplied to municipalities, and that there's water being supplied. So that's quite literally the EISD in a nutshell, right? And there's many different types of these oversight committees in different portfolios. So your other question, sorry, can you just repeat that for me?
So how are you, as the Johannesburg Oversight and Accountability team, ensuring that oversight and accountability are actually occurring in collaboration with the EISD Oversight and Accountability Committee?
And that's quite an interesting one, because oversight and accountability is not just about wagging your finger at an institution that's supposed to be doing its job, right? Part of it is actually understanding where the gaps are in the ability to fulfill those mandates. So part of our work included research first, desktop research, and getting quite an understanding of on the ground, what do residents feel is missing in terms of waste management services? So we focused our efforts a little bit in the inner city, your MTN taxi rank, but we do understand that it's bigger than that. So this was just a small sample of people that we tried to take it from. From there, we engaged the oversight and accountability, so the EISD committee. Why? Because, often as communities, we think that things need to happen in a vacuum, or that these committees are not there doing the work for us. So part of that was to understand, how can a community collaborate with the structures that are in place to ensure the work is happening, but also to create an information exchange. We don't know what we don't know. And there are certain things that are not published on time, so you're not able to really see live reports on what's happened in the municipality. So what better way to get information than to go to the horse's mouth, to go to these committees and find out what work they are doing. And you'd be quite surprised. They are very happy to engage. They're really happy to get the community's involvement and to educate the community on the work that they do. So we've engaged the chairperson of the EISD committee, who is Councillor Vingani Munyai, my apologies. And in doing that, what we were trying to do is create a space for him to know that there are community organizations that want to participate in these spaces, and then to get a sense of how do we go about participating in these spaces, rather than using adversarial means like court systems, which you are well within your rights to exercise your rights as a community. But there are other ways to engage, which involves the first stage, which is collaboration. And that's been a way of entering the oversight and committee. So it's the oversight and accountability spaces. So the first aim was how do we get in? And there's ways to be an observer status. And that's just to sit there and to listen to the presentations of these institutions to get that information. There are rules around observer statuses, so you can't necessarily participate or ask questions openly. But there's also a means for you to be invited to make a presentation to the oversight, the EISD committee, on any area that you would like them to explore. And that's what part of our desktop research was going to uncover, is identifying where are the gaps and where do we think Pick It Up could be doing a little bit better, or where is the issues around the community involvement? Is it a community education issue, and how can we work together to educate the community? I'm going to stop there because I can go on forever, Fahima.
So what I've actually gotten from that is, and we've said this before on the show, is that knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
You have to know what you're fighting for, who to go to, and how to participate in order to actually get results. It's not enough just to get angry and to toy. No, you must have information.
Absolutely. And it's not always about a fight. Sometimes we always assume we have to start in there fighting. It's very important to know what other strategies you can employ if collaboration doesn't work. But there are other things that are at play, specifically in waste management, which is community behavior and what we've been accustomed to accept. There are a number of us that contribute to the degradation of our communities by littering.
Yes.
And that isn't a point a finger at ourselves. It's actually trying to understand why. What is it about the physical representation of litter that does not impact us? Why do we not see how that small action actually adds to the broader frustration we feel around cities and the lack of service delivery? So this is the importance of finding collaboration before we go into the fight, right?
Yes.
Is to say, what is your part and what is my part? And my part is not to do your part. So I think sometimes as communities, we think we must clean up the city for the municipality, but they're there to do that for a reason. But what we could do is ensure that we also hold each other accountable, that when the city does clean up, we don't add to the degradation of the society. So yeah, I think it's we have to promote working hand in glove first. And if that doesn't work, then we can look at other strategies to kind of enforce our rights and to ensure that the city does use its mandate. And that's where the EISD committee comes in.
Very nice. Thank you for that information. I've learned a few new things today. So what with the proposals or guidelines, right, that we can submit, let's say there is a proposal or guideline that we can submit in order to start initiating oversight and accountability. What exactly would the process of that be? And how do we get involved in getting that particular proposal or guideline adopted by the municipality, local government, so for our cities, let's say,
And this is where knowledge is power. Because the Municipal Systems Act has it built in there that community participation is a vital part of the work of the municipality, and they must promote that. That also starts with your oversight and accountability committees. What does that look like? So part of the work is participating as an observer, as I said, in these oversight committees so that you know what is happening in that space. Secondly, you could co-opt either a councillor, put petitions together, get a bunch of signatures to show this is an area of interest for a lot of residents that needs to be entertained. What we've also looked to do as the ASRI team is put together a proposal or a guideline that we could table before the EISD committee that they could take forward to kind of codify as a legal instrument the work of or what community participation can look like in oversight and accountability spaces. So it's to provide proper parameters on how to participate. Because right now, getting a 10-minute presentation doesn't really allow you much. Sitting in as an observer and not being able to ask those questions doesn't allow you much. And there's a lot more that civil society can do in these spaces in terms of research, on-the-ground lobbying, and getting direct feedback from communities. So this is where promoting that collaboration in action could work. So yeah, Section 16 of the Municipal Systems Act clearly identifies how you can do that. Petitions, use your councillors, use your council committees, approach your chair of chairs, approach your speaker, get them to table something before the municipal council so that can take it forward into a legal structure, right? But that's not the only thing we can do. And this is why we say participate in these structures so that you know where the gaps actually exist. Yeah.
So currently, do we have oversight committees that allow for civic participation? And how does that actually look like? I think you've described it a little bit. Could we go a little bit more in depth in what participation would actually look like?
So that's it. It's literally observer status and being allowed to present at these committees. And there is room, and this is part of the work that we're doing as the Joburg team, is trying to, show these oversight committees that this 10-minute slot that you give is not sufficient. This observer status that you give is not sufficient. And also it's by invitation. So you can only observe by invitation. So there's a lot of a waiting game that you have to have. At the present moment, the EISD committee is waiting on a couple of interested community organizations to invite them to make presentations, but that can take time. And a lot of the time they want to curate specific initiatives that engage communities. That takes time. So what we are proposing is, let us have a member of civil society permanently holding space in these committees so that they can be that link between communities and the municipality. Yeah.
Rather than waiting for invitations.
Yes. And look, I mean, it depends on who you are. But a lot of the participation is also through political means. And certain residents may not be political. They just want to see a service done.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily want to go through political parties. You just want to make sure that the services that you are entitled to are being carried forward. So what better way to do that than in a space that does not need to be politicized, that is really about being at the heart of what communities need.
So let us say that a proposal or guideline is being proposed, right? It's coming and we're advocating for it.
Yes.
So what will that proposal that the team is advocating for improve regarding the current status quo, especially with reference to waste management?
Sure. So it's currently in draft format. What it really is trying to do, I've got it here in front of me, is to clearly identify what role a civil society would play on the committee.
Okay.
So it's to clearly define the parameters. So you wouldn't be there to make decisions. You would not want to go beyond your scope because the Act is very clear that the municipality has legislative and executive authority and the community participation should not infringe upon that. So this would then make sure that that guideline or that parameter is clearly understood. From there, it would also look at how do you appoint? So who would be appointed? What is the process of selection so that it's transparent and open? It would also be something that could be general. So it's not just for the EISD committee. It's actually a blueprint of how to participate in all these oversight committees. It also, one of my particular favorite things about it, and that's because of the work that I do as a conflict management practitioner, is that it proposes dispute resolution procedures. So where civil society cannot find itself or cannot find agreement within the committee, there are processes such as mediation that can be employed. So internal mechanisms to ensure that civil society is also not beating its head against municipalities to get its message across. And I think that's quite an important reiteration of collaboration and engagement rather than the fight, right, that which we've come to see. But that by all means does not discount the role of civic action through the form of protest, civic action through the form of digital protest or digital campaigns. All of that has its place. But I think what our focus has been on is how do we use the structures in place to administer oversight and accountability. And this is one of the things that we've landed on.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Danila. You've literally covered the last two questions that we had for you. And it was very insightful, honestly. Yeah. I've learned a few things. I'm sure the residents have learned a few things, hopefully. So. And if there are any questions, then the ASRI website will be, open, whether it is on Instagram, whether it is on the YouTube channel that the podcast will be uploaded on. Questions can be, placed there, and then we will then explain further about this proposal or guideline. Thank you once again, Zanele.
Thank you for having me, and I hope you all enjoyed all of this.
We really did. And thank you, residents, for tuning in. It has been another great episode with another amazing guest. Tune in or keep your eyes open for the next episode. And remember, stay blessed, stay happy, and be good residents. Accountability. Thank you.
Bye.